The night shift was always quieter. Hallways hummed with soft machines. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Most patients were finally asleep. Only the elevators kept moving. I worked the late nursing rounds. 3rd floor to ICU. Then back. The hospital felt huge at night. Empty corridors stretching forever. Footsteps echoing too loudly. At 2:11 a.m., I hit the call button. The elevator arrived almost instantly. Doors slid open with a soft ding. Inside, the lights flickered once. No one else was riding. I stepped inside quickly, pressed the button for floor 5. The doors closed smoothly. The cab began rising slowly. Then it stopped at floor 4. The doors opened halfway, then jammed with a sharp jerk. The hallway outside was dark. No lights, no nurse station glow, just a silent, unfinished corridor. I frowned at the panel. Floor 4 was under renovation. Closed 4 months after flooding. No patients allowed up there. No power should have been on. The door slid shut again. The elevator resumed climbing. I exhaled, slightly uneasy. Probably just a sensor glitch. Old hospital elevators did that. Then the elevator stopped again. The panel showed floor 4. The doors opened fully this time. Cold air drifted inside slowly. The hallway lights flickered on. At the far end stood someone, a patient in a hospital gown, barefoot on the cold tile, standing completely still, watching the elevator. "Do you need help?" I called. My voice echoed strangely long. The patient didn't answer. Didn't move closer either, just kept staring silently. The elevator waited open, longer than it normally should. I reached for the close button. Just as I pressed it, the patient started walking. Slow, uneven, dragging steps. Head slightly tilted downward, wet footprints marking the floor. Like they'd come from water, my stomach tightened hard. They reached the doors, stepped inside without speaking. I noticed their wristband dangling, printed letters smeared and faded, but one word still readable. Discharged, dated 3 days ago. The doors slid shut quietly. The elevator resumed upward. I forced a polite smile. "Which floor?" I asked gently. The patient finally looked up. Their eyes looked cloudy gray. "I already pressed it," they whispered. The panel lit up suddenly, a button glowing red. "Vedos. Subvasemen. Morglevel." The night shift was always quiet, but tonight felt different. I was heading down to grab some supplies when a patient stepped into the elevator with me, their hospital gown damp, water dripping onto the floor. I pressed the button for the 1st floor, but my smile faded instantly. The button for B2, the morgue level, lit up instead. "I didn't press that," I said. The red light glowed with an unnerving steadiness. The elevator shuddered and began its descent. "We're not supposed to go there," I muttered, jamming the cancel button. It was useless. It wouldn't respond at all. The patient just stood there, motionless, their bare feet leaving faint, wet prints on the floor. The air inside the cab grew colder, like a freezer door had been left open. "You work here," they whispered, not as a question, but a statement. I nodded. Yes, night shift nurse. Their gray eyes were locked on me, unblinking. "Then you should know," te murmurad their voice, aloham. The elevator always listens. A chill crawled up my spine. Every hospital has its ghost stories, its strange rumors. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice came out shaky. "It's just a mechanical fault." Just then, the lights flickered, plunging us into darkness for a split second. When they came back on, dimmer than before, the patient was standing much closer. I hadn't heard them move. Their reflection in the metal wall was pale as fresh hospital sheets. I swallowed hard. "How long were you admitted?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. They tilted their head, "Long enough to be forgotten." Their voice seemed to echo from far away. The floor display ticked down with agonizing slowness. 5, 4, 3. We were descending far too quickly. My pulse raced, trying to keep up. "Look," I said, choosing my words carefully. "The morgue level is restricted." There was no immediate reply, only the soft drip, drip, drip of water pooling near my shoes. "Everyone goes there eventually," the patient finally answered, the words hanging heavy in the freezing air. The elevator groaned, a deep, metallic sound, as the temperature continued to plummet. I hugged my arms, my own breath now visible in faint clouds. The fluorescent light above buzzed, the sound deepening until it was almost like distant whispering. That's when I noticed the patient's hospital band again. The ink was blurred, water-damaged, but beneath the discharge stamp, another label was visible. It read, "Transferred B2 Holding." The date was exactly 3 days ago. My throat tightened. That's tonight's date," I whispered, my own words confusing me. The patient offered a faint, unsettling smile. "Time moves different downstairs." The elevator jerked violently, the panel blinking from 2 to 1. Then pausing, a loud bang echoed from below, and the lights died completely, leaving only the dull, pulsing red glow of the beta button. Then came a sound from outside the doors, a slow, scraping drag, like heavy metal against tile. It was getting closer. I froze. The patient beside me didn't flinch, just listened, as if they were expecting it. A wet thump hit the elevator door, followed by another, then a faint shuffling sound, as if more than one thing was waiting out there. "What is that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. The patient answered calmly, "Night admissions." But the paperwork's late. My chest felt like it was being crushed. The elevator dinged, the sound echoing unnaturally in the small space. The doors began to slide open. A thin sliver of black appeared, and a wave of frigid air washed over me. The morgue corridor was dark, lit only by the red glow of emergency lights. Metal gurneys lined the hall. Most were covered with white sheets. Some weren't. The scraping sound returned. I saw movement in the shadows. A gurney, rolling by itself, stopped right in front of the elevator. The sheet on top slipped, and a pale hand dangled over the edge. A hospital tag was tied to the wrist. It fluttered in the draft, turning just enough for me to read the printed name. It was the patient standing right beside me. Same name, same ID number, same admission date. My breath hitched in my throat. I turned my head slowly, my eyes wide with terror. They were already stepping out of the elevator, their bare feet leaving wet footprints on the morgue's cold tile. They paused in the doorway and looked back at me, their expressions strangely calm. "You're coming next shift," they said, their voice gentle. The elevator already knows. The corridor lights flickered, and I could see more shapes moving in the deep shadows. Panic took over. I slammed the close door button, over and over. This time, it worked. The doors shut with a final, deafening bang. But not before I heard several voices whisper in unison from the darkness. "See you tomorrow night." The elevator shot upward, so fast, my knees buckled. I clung to the rail, my heart pounding against my ribs. The panel flew past the floors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It stopped at my floor, and the doors opened to a brightly lit, blessedly normal hallway. Nurses were chatting. Phones were ringing, and the air was warm. It was as if nothing had happened. I stumbled out onto the floor, shaking. The elevator doors slid shut behind me. I stood there, just trying to breathe, when the elevator dinged again. I looked up at the display. The number 5 vanished, and slowly, silently, it was replaced by a glowing red B2. No one had called it. It was just going back down. The elevator stopped between the 5th and 6th floor with a violent jerk, throwing Sarah against the cold metal wall as the lights flickered to a dim orange glow. The emergency alarm button didn't work, and the intercom only hissed with faint, broken whispers that sounded almost like someone breathing on the other side. Her phone showed no signal, and as she tried to steady her breath, she realized the digital floor display was slowly changing on its own, counting down into numbers the hospital didn't even have. A low thud echoed from above the ceiling panel, like someone crawling across the top of the elevator shaft. Dust drifted down, and then came a long dragging sound, followed by 3 slow knocks directly over her head. Sarah whispered, "Hello," before she could stop herself, and the knocks immediately answered back 3 again, louder this time. Something scratched along the metal, tracing circles, as if searching for a way inside. The lights suddenly went out completely, leaving her in suffocating darkness where even her hands disappeared from view. In that silence, she heard the faint ding of the elevator arriving at a floor, and the doors creaked open halfway, with a grinding metallic scream. A dim hospital corridor stretched outside, but the hallway lights were dead, and a wheelchair sat alone in the center, slowly rocking as if someone had just stood up from it. Sarah knew the hospital's 5th floor was sealed for renovations. No patients, no staff, no power. Before she could move, the wheelchair stopped rocking, and a shape appeared at the far end of the corridor. Tall, thin, and unmoving, it stood beneath a flickering exit sign, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The elevator doors tried to close, but jammed halfway, trapping her between staying inside or stepping out. Then the shape began to move. Not walking, but jerking forward in sudden, unnatural shifts, each motion bringing it several feet closer. Sarah slammed the close door button repeatedly, tears forming as the figure drew near enough for her to see its hospital gown dragging across the floor. Its face remained hidden in shadow, but she heard the wet rasp of breathing and the soft squeal of rubber soles scraping tile. Just as a pale hand reached toward the narrowing gap of the elevator doors, the lift jolted violently, and the doors snapped shut with a bang, cutting off the reaching fingers by inches. The elevator shot upward at terrifying speed, lights blazoned back on as if nothing had happened. Sarah collapsed to the floor, shaking, when the speaker above her crackled to life for the first time that night. A calm, distorted voice whispered, "You weren't supposed to stop on that floor." The elevator dinged softly and slowed to a stop. The doors opened to the basement level, and the hallway outside was completely dark, except for the sound of the same wheelchair, slowly rolling toward her from somewhere in the shadows. The basement corridor smelled of damp concrete and antiseptic long gone stale, the kind of smell that suggested this part of the hospital had been forgotten for years. Sarah stayed frozen inside the elevator as the wheelchair's slow squeak echoed closer, each turn of its wheels sounding louder in the empty darkness. The overhead light inside the lift began flickering again, and with every flash, she thought she saw a silhouette briefly appearing at the end of the hallway, then gone when the light steadied. She jabbed the close button, but the elevator refused to respond. The doors stuck wide open, as if something invisible held them in place. The wheelchair rolled into view at last, emerging from the black corridor with no one pushing it, its footrests tapping lightly against the floor. It stopped directly outside the elevator, perfectly centered, and for a moment everything went silent except for Sarah's shallow breathing. Then the chair's wheels creaked once more, turning slightly, as though inviting her to sit. A cold draft slid into the elevator, carrying a faint whisper that sounded like a nurse calling a patient's name through static. Sarah stepped back, pressing herself into the corner. When the elevator display suddenly changed from B to a word she'd never seen before, M or G before, she could react. The doors slammed shut on their own, and the elevator descended even lower with a heavy mechanical groan. The temperature dropped sharply, her breath turning visible as frost crept along the metal handrails. The lights dimmed to a sickly blue, and the speaker crackled again, this time playing a faint recording of hospital announcements from years ago, voices overlapping in warped, echoing fragments. The elevator stopped with a dull thud. When the doors slid open, Sarah saw stainless steel tables, white tile walls, and long drawer compartments stretching into the shadows. She had never been to the morgue before, but she knew instantly what it was. One of the metal drawers at the far wall was slowly sliding open by itself, inch by inch, with a drawn-out scraping sound that made her stomach twist. Inside the drawer lay a body covered by a sheet. As she watched in horror, the sheet slowly sank inward, as though the chest beneath it was taking a slow, shallow breath. Sarah stumbled backward, smashing the elevator's control panel in panic, hitting every button at once. The lights inside the morgue flickered violently, and the drawer suddenly shot fully open with a deafening clang. The sheet slipped off. The face on the table was pale, eyes half open, and unmistakably hers. Sarah screamed, slamming her fist against the panel again and again. until finally the elevator doors snapped closed. The lift shot upward at full speed, rattling so hard she thought the cables might snap. Tears blurred her vision as the numbers climbed rapidly. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, 5. The elevator stopped at the main floor lobby. The doors opened to a brightly lit hospital reception area, normal and quiet, with nurses chatting softly at the desk as if nothing strange had happened. Sarah staggered out, shaking, trying to explain to the nearest nurse what she had just seen. But the nurse frowned, confused, and asked her name. Sarah Malik, night shift nurse. I started tonight, she stammered. The nurse's face slowly drained of color. In a hushed voice, she replied, Sarah Malik was scheduled tonight, but she never arrived. The nurse turned the monitor toward her. On the screen was a hospital incident report from earlier that evening. Fatal highway accident during winter storm, victim identified as nurse Sarah Malik. Sarah's reflection in the black monitor glass flickered, then faded slightly, becoming pale and translucent. Behind her, the elevator dinged softly one more time. When the nurse looked back up, Sarah was groaning, and the elevator doors were slowly closing, with a lone empty wheelchair visible inside.